Hey everyone, and welcome back to Spoons in the Classroom. If you've been navigating the survival journey with me over our last few episodes, then you know that we have spent a lot of time digging into the architecture of our daily energy. We did the hard work of tracking our output in the Spoon audit. We went into the weeds to clear out our digital spaces and taming the digital jungle. And in our very last episode, we mastered the art of the low energy no. Learning how to set firm boundaries so the outside world stops siphoning off our peace before we can even have a chance to use it. But today we're going to tackle a beast that lives right at the finish line of your workday. I want to talk about a very specific, incredibly frustrating phenomenon that happens the exact moment your teaching duties end. So let me paint you a picture, and let's see if this sounds familiar to you. The clock hits 3:30 or 4 p.m. You shut your laptop screen, or you close your physical classroom door, or you wrap up the final homeschool block of the day with your kids. The work is technically over. Your contract hours are met. The lesson plans are ticked off. You should feel a sense of relief, right? You should feel ready to transition into your evening, log off, and enjoy life. But instead, you stand up from your chair and you realize you aren't just sleepy tired. It's something entirely different. You feel vibrating. Your brain feels like it's not like less of a thinking organ and more like the static electricity on an old analog TV screen. Your chest feels tight, your shoulders are practically up to your earlobes, and your ears are ringing. You walk into the kitchen to start dinner, or you sit down on the couch and a family member, a partner, or even your own child walks up and asks you a completely normal, perfectly loving question. Something simple like, "Hey, what's for dinner?" or "Can you help me find my shoes?" And inside your chest, a tiny alarm goes off. You feel this sudden, overwhelming urge to just scream. Please, nobody look at me, nobody talk to me, and nobody touch me for the next 3 hours. If you have ever felt that exact wave of irritation, I want you to take a deep breath right now. Let it out and listen to me very, very carefully. You are not a bad person. You are not a bad parent. You are not a resentful partner. You are not a grumpy, mean educator who chose the wrong profession. What you are experiencing is a physical, neurological phenomenon. It's sensory hangover. You see, we talk a lot in education about the cognitive load, the immense mental energy that it takes to scaffold lessons, grade essays, analyze data, and manage 40 different personalities all at once. We know that our brains get tired. But what a system completely ignores is our sensory load. When you spend 6, 7, or 8 hours a day under fluorescent lights, or tracking a moving grid of 30 tiny virtual faces on a screen, or absorbing the physical chaotic noise of a traditional classroom, your nervous system is working overtime. Every single ping of an inbox notification, every single digital audio artifact over your headset, every fluorescent hum, and every rapid visual shift is an input your brain has to process. And by 4 p.m., your brain hasn't just processed a day's worth of math or reading. It has processed a million tiny environmental microaggressions. Your nervous system is stuck in a low-grade, simmering state of fight-flight. It thinks you're being chased by a predator because has been bombarded with data for 8 hours straight. And here's where the trap snaps shut on us, especially for those of us who teach virtually, work from home, or homeschool. Because we don't have a physical commute anymore, we expect ourselves to transition from teacher us, the high energy facilitator, to parent us, the calm and present parent, or just us, the relaxed individual, in the span of a single second. We literally close off our screens, turn around in our kitchen chair, and think we should be ready to host dinner. But your nervous system does not have an on or off switch. It is a massive locomotive. You cannot bring a speeding train to a dead stop in 1 inch without completely derailing the cars. When we don't give ourselves a way to slow down, we crash. And then who gets the wreckage? The people that we love the most, and the personal peace that we are trying so desperately to cultivate. So today, we're going to try to fix that. We're going to look at the invisible drains that are putting you in sensory debt every single morning. And more importantly, we are going to build a practical, non-negotiable 10-minute sensory off-ramp. A psychological commute that safely steps your nervous system off the ledge, closes the mental tabs of the day, and protects your remaining spoons for the evening. You've spent all day taking care of everyone else's minds. For the next few minutes, we're going to take care of your nervous system. So let's dive in and see how we pay back that sensory debt. All right, let's get into the mechanics of why this is happening. To fix the 4 p.m. crash, we have to look at the invisible ledger we are running all day long. I call this our sensory debt. In the education and tech and the professional world in general, we hear a lot of buzzwords about burnout. People tell you to watch your cognitive load. They mean the sheer volume of mental data that you juggle. The lesson planning, the grading criteria, the IEP accommodations, the scripts, the platform algorithms. And we know that our brains get tired from just thinking. But sensory load is different. Sensory load isn't about what you were thinking about. It's about what your physical body, your eyes, your ears, and your skin are forced to endure while you're doing that thinking. Your brain has a security guard called the reticular activating system. Its job is to filter out the background noise, the flickering lights, and the random movements so that you can focus on the task in front of you. But here's the catch. That filter isn't free. It runs on spoons. Every single piece of sensory data your brain has to actively ignore is costing you energy. So by the afternoon, that security guard is dead on the floor from exhaustion. And suddenly, every single stimulus hits your raw nervous system like an open nerve. So let's break down what this looks like, because depending on how you're working, your sensory debt is being accumulated in very different and very insidious ways. So let's talk to my virtual workers, my digital content creators, and my hybrid teachers. Your sensory debt is high-tech, highly compressed, and completely unnatural for the human body. Think about your eyes. You aren't just looking at a screen. You are staring directly into a high-intensity blue light projector for 6 to 8 hours. Your eyes are constantly working to track micro movements across a grid of 20, 30, 40, even more tiny squares. If your students have their camera on, your brain is trying to process dozens of different backgrounds, lighting shifts, and movements simultaneously. It is visual whiplash. And if they have their cameras off, you're staring at a wall of cold, black, empty digital boxes. Do you know what your brain does when it stares at a blank void while you are performing at a high level? It panics. It interprets that lack of feedback as social isolation or a psychological void, forcing you to overcompensate by pumping out even more artificial energy just to keep the momentum going. And then there's the audio. You've got a headset clamped to your skull, earbuds in, your speakers on, however you're listening to your environment. And you aren't listening to natural human voices. You're listening to highly compressed digital audio artifacts. You are listening to the static of a bad microphone, a dog barking in the background of a student's house, parents cooking, cleaning, whatever in the background, the echo of your own voice bouncing back to you through a laggy connection, and the non-stop high-pitched ping of the chat notifications and incoming emails. Every single one of those compressed sounds is like a tiny, microscopic scratch on your nervous system. You don't notice the first 10 scratches, but by hour 6, you're bleeding out. Now let's pivot back to my traditional brick and mortar workers and my homeschool parents, because your sensory debt looks different, but it carries the exact same weight. Your day is a non-stop, high-stimulus assault of physical chaos. You walk into a room illuminated by harsh, buzzing fluorescent lighting that oscillates at a frequency your eyes can detect, even if you don't consciously realize it. You're navigating a physical landscape of constant, unpredictable motion, bodies shifting, chairs scraping against linoleum, paper rustling, pencils sharpening, backpacks unzipping, the clacking of keys on a student's Chromebook. Your auditory environment is an absolute war zone. It's the sheer volume of 20 or 30 kids talking over one another, overlapping questions, the bell ringing, loudspeakers interrupting your flow, and the physical demand of being touched or having your personal space invaded continuously without a break. And if you're a homeschool parent, this is compounded because there is no physical boundary at all. The classroom noise is happening in your kitchen, your living room, your safe haven. The child who is struggling with their math worksheet at 11 is the same child asking you for a snack at 2. And it's the same child throwing a tantrum at 5. The sensory input never shifts channels. It's just one long, continuous broadcast of noise and demand. And here's the real danger of running this sensory debt. It mimics anxiety and depression. When your nervous system is overstimulated for hours at a time, your adrenal glands start pumping out cortisol and adrenaline. Your body genuinely believes that it's under attack. It drops you straight into survival mode. So when you finally close that laptop or you walk out of the classroom, your body is still braced for impact. You are physically in a safe environment. You're at home. You're with the people you love. You're safe. But your biology is still trapped in the jungle. And because we live in a culture that values hyperproductivity, what do? We look at our to-do list and we see that we need to prep dinner or update our podcast platforms or clean the house or fold the laundry. And we demand that our bodies immediately pivot from high alert survival mode to nurturing productive home mode in the span of a single footstep across the threshold. We try to override our biology with sheer willpower. But when you try to force an overstimulated vibrating nervous system to perform tasks, it rebels. That rebellion looks like that flash of white hot irritation when someone speaks to you. It looks like that heavy, foggy numbness where you just stare at the wall for an hour scrolling mindlessly on your phone, unable to move while feeling incredibly guilty that you aren't doing something productive. That mindless scrolling, that isn't relaxation, my friends. That's your brain going into a catatonic state because it simply cannot process one more active thought. But here's the tragedy. By scrolling, you're feeding your eyes more blue light and more fast-paced visual data. You're trying to pay off a sensory debt by taking out another high-sensory interest loan. You cannot fix a sensory hangover with more stimulation. We have to stop treating our bodies like machines that need to be switched off or on. We have to look at the ledger. If you spend 6 hours taking in 1,000,000 points of data, you cannot expect to spend 0 minutes letting that data drain out of your system. We need a systematic way to clear the cache of your brain, and we need to actively pay back the debt before we try to spend any more spoons on our evenings, our families, or our creative projects. So how do we actually do that without wasting hours of our day? How do we build a functional system that drains the static out of your skull in just 10 minutes? Let's take a short break. And when we come back, I'm going to walk you through the exact 3-step blueprint you need to build to build your own personal sensory off-ramp. So stick around. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in or you've been nodding along through the first half of this episode, we've established the ugly truth. By 4 p.m., your nervous system isn't just tired, it's vibrating under a massive amount of sensory debt. So how do we fix it? We don't do it by disappearing for a weekend spa retreat, as much as we would all love to do that. We live in the real world. We have families to feed, kids to homeschool, podcasts to edit, assignments to complete, lessons to plan, and lives to run. We don't have hours. What we do have is 10 minutes. I want to introduce you to a concept that I call the sensory off-ramp. Think of this as your psychological commute. If you work from home or homeschool, your physical commute is about 12 steps from your desk to your refrigerator. That is not enough distance for your brain to process a shift in identity. We have to construct a deliberate, mechanical buffer zone designed to drain the static electricity out of your skull before you step back into your life. This is a strict 3-step sequence. The order matters, the environment matters, and your willingness to protect these 10 minutes matters most of all. So let's build your off-ramp, step by step. Step 1, the environmental reset. It takes about 1 to 2 minutes. Before you even think about changing your internal state, you have to kill the external inputs. Close every single browser tab that has to deal with work. Shut the lid of your work laptop. If you use an external monitor, turn it completely off so you aren't tempted by the glowing screen. If you work at the kitchen table or a shared space, physically hide your teaching materials, your grading pens, your planners, your tables, in a basket completely out of sight. If your brain can see the work, it's still doing the work. Clear out the visual jungle. Step 2, the low stimulus buffer. This goes for minutes 2 to 8. This is the core of the decompression. For 6 minutes, you're going into sensory isolation. Move to a dim or completely dark room. Your bedroom, a closet, or even your car parked out in the driveway. Close your eyes. You are allowing 0 incoming data. No social media scrolling, no text messages, and absolutely no podcasts. If you need sound, put on noise-canceling headphones and play pure brown noise or absolute silence. Let your eyes rest from the blue light glare and let your ears rest from audio compression. Step 3. These are your last 2 minutes. Now that your nervous system has stopped redlining, you need to do or have a physical anchor to signal your transition into the evening. Do a physical uniform change. Swap your work attire for your evening comfort clothes. Splash freezing cold water on your face to stimulate your vagus nerve and slow your heart rate. Step outside for 2 minutes to look at natural light. Or light a specific candle or incense that you only burn when the workday is dead. This is your official checkpoint into your personal life. So let's talk about why this sequence works. Why skipping straight to step 3 will fail you every single time. Almost everyone who tries to relax after a hard day jumps straight to a version of the sensory bridge. They pour a glass of wine, they turn on a TV show, or they sit down and scroll through their phone. But if you haven't killed the visual workspace in step 1, and you haven't given your brain 6 minutes of absolute silence in step 2, you're just stacking more sensory input onto a nervous system that is already on fire. Think of your brain like a computer cache. When you have 50 apps running in the background, the whole system lags. Step 2, the low stimulus buffer, is you clearing that cache. It is a hard, forced close on all the digital and physical background noise you've been carrying since 8 a.m. I can already hear what some of you are thinking because I say it to myself all the time as well. This sounds great in theory, but I have toddlers, or I'm a homeschool mom. The second the lesson ends, the parenting continues. I don't have a magical quiet room I can just disappear into for 10 minutes. I hear you. So let's talk about how we implement this in a chaotic real-world household. If you have kids at home, this off-ramp requires you to set a boundary with them. And this is actually an incredible opportunity to model healthy energy management. You look your kids in the eye and you say, "Mom has worked very hard today, and my brain is completely full of words. I need 10 minutes of quiet time to reset my brain so I can be the best mom for you tonight. I'm setting a timer for 10 minutes. During this time, you can read a book or play quietly, but you cannot talk to me unless it's an absolute emergency." Will it be perfect the first time? No. They might knock on the door at minute 4, but you hold the line. You're teaching them that human beings have limits and that protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary maintenance. If you're a brick and mortar teacher who has to drive home, your off-ramp happens in a school parking lot. Before you turn the key in the ignition, before you pull out into traffic, you sit in that quiet car for 6 minutes. No radio, no phone, just sit there and let the ringing in your ears fade away. Don't use your commute to make phone calls or listen to the news. Use it as your sensory vault. And for my virtual educators who are wearing the virtual classroom uniform, that's comfortable but presentable top, paired with sweatpants hidden under the desk. Do not underestimate the power of a physical wardrobe swap in step 3. When you take off the shirt you wore while performing for your students or your clients, and you put on an oversized hoodie, you are shredding an identity. You're taking off the costume of teacher you and putting on the armor of your personal self. It sounds incredibly simple, but the tactile shift of different fabric on your skin is a massive immediate message that says the danger has passed, we're safe, and we can stand down. Paying your sensory debt isn't about escaping your life. It's about building a fortress around your remaining spoon so that you actually get to experience life. Now, when we come back for our final segment, we're going to talk about the long-term magic that happens when you stop giving your family and your creative products your overstimulated leftovers and start giving them your presence. So stay with me. All right, we're in the home stretch of this episode, and we've officially laid out the entire engineering blueprint for building your 10-minute sensory off-ramp. We've talked about the mechanical nature of the environmental reset, the 6 minutes of radical low-stimulus isolation, and the sensory bridge that brings your body back down to earth. But now I want to talk about the why. I want to talk about the long-term compounding magic that happens on the other side of that 10 minutes. Because let's be entirely honest with each other, this isn't just a clever life hack to pass the time. This is a battle for the evening hours of your life. This is about reclaiming the entire trajectory of your relationships, your creative passions, and your relationship with yourself. Let's look at the default setting, the timeline most of us are living in right now when we refuse to take this time. The day wraps up and your nervous system is vibrating at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And instead of stopping, you push right through that boundary. Why? Because the voice of guilt kicks in. The voice that says, you don't have 10 minutes to sit in a dark room. Look at the scene. Look at the laundry. Your kids need you. Your partner needs you. Your platform needs you. So you obey the guilt. You switch from performing for your students or your clients to performing for your family. You march into the kitchen on pure, raw, cortisol-driven adrenaline. You chop vegetables, you answer questions, you fold towels, you manage tantrums, and you do it all while wearing an invisible suit of armor. Because your skin feels hypersensitive and your brain is screaming for quiet. You are physically present, but emotionally you are behind a glass wall. And then around 8 or 9 p.m., the adrenaline tank hits dead empty. The survival chemicals drain out of your muscles, and the crash hits you like a physical wall. You collapse onto the couch, completely hollowed out. You're a ghost in your own living room. And because you feel like you've had absolutely zero ownership over your day, because you gave every single spoon to your students from 8 to 4, and every remaining crumb to your household from 4 to 8, a psychological defense mechanism kicks in. In behavioral science, they call this revenge bedtime procrastination. It's that internal rebellion where you stay up until midnight or 1 a.m. staring blankly at a television screen you aren't even watching, or mindlessly scrolling through social media feeds. You don't even want to be awake. Your eyes hurt, but you refuse to go to sleep because sleep feels like a scam. Sleep means the day is over. And the second you close your eyes, you have to wake up and give all your spoons away to someone else again. Staying up late is your desperate, toxic way of clawing back a sense of personal freedom. But let's call it what it actually is. It's a fake rest. You are trying to pay off a massive sensory debt with cheap imitation currency. You go to bed exhausted. You wake up the next morning already in a spoon deficit. Your sensory ledger is deep in the red before you even pour your first cup of coffee. And the vicious cycle loops right back around. You are living your life entirely on credit, and the interest rates are destroying your peace. When you implement a 10-minute sensory off-ramp, you are staging a structural intervention on that cycle. You are refusing to take out the loan. Imagine a completely different version of 4 p.m. The clock strikes the hour, and you execute your off-ramp. You step into the quiet room, you pull the hoodie over your head, and you let the static drain. When you walk into the kitchen 10 minutes later, you aren't a magically cured, hyper-energetic superhero. Let's stay grounded in reality here. Teaching and parenting are hard work, and you are still going to be physically tired. But here's the world-changing difference. You are no longer redlining. Your nervous system has stepped down from fight or flight, and you've created what I call a spoon capital. By investing 10 minutes in yourself at 4 p.m., you earn an exponential dividend of patience, clarity, and presence by 6 p.m. When your child drops a cup of milk on the floor, it's just spilled milk. It's not a psychological crisis that causes you to snap. When your partner asks you a question, you can actually hear their voice instead of the ringing in your ears. You are no longer giving the people you love your overstimulated, vibrating leftovers. They get the grounded, regulated version of you. And let's talk about what this does for your creative soul. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you aren't just an educator. You're a creator. You have a podcast you want to build, a book you want to write, a curriculum you want to design, or a passion you want to cultivate. But I'm telling you right now, from the bottom of my heart, you cannot create from a survival state. Creativity requires cognitive white space. It requires a brain that feels safe enough to wander, to play, and to connect dots. If your brain is spending all of its energy trying to process a sensory hangover from your day job, your creative ideas will stay locked behind that wall of exhaustion. Those 10 minutes in the dark at 4 p.m. are the literal gatekeeper to your creative genius at 7 p.m. You are practicing the art you have left to give to the world. So how do we overcome the guilt of walking away for 10 minutes? We reframe those 10 minutes, or we reframe what those 10 minutes actually mean. When you step behind that closed door, you aren't abandoning your responsibilities. You are performing standard maintenance so that you can fulfill them. We would never yell at a car for stopping at a gas station to refuel. We understand that the stop is what makes the rest of the journey possible. Your nervous system is no different. If you're a homeschool parent, taking this time in front of your kids isn't a failure of parenting. It is the highest form of modeling. You are showing your children in real time how a regulated adult handles stress. You are teaching them that human beings have limits, that boundaries are beautiful, and that your peace and their peace is a priority. This week, I'm issuing a direct challenge to this community, and it's a permission slip disguised as a non-negotiable rule. I want you to open your daily planner or open a calendar app on your phone, and I want you to block off those 10 minutes at the end of your workday. Give it a name. Label it the off-ramp. Set an alarm with a gentle chime. And when that alarm goes off, the teacher and professional version of you officially steps down from the stage. The custodian of your spoons takes the wheel. You have spent the last 8 hours holding space for everyone else's minds, everyone else's growth, and everyone else's data. Now hold space for your own peace. Take the off-ramp, and your evenings are waiting for you. Thank you so much for traveling through this episode with me today. Every single week when I sit down behind this microphone, I am reminded of how incredible our community of educators, creators, parents, and professionals truly is. But I'm also reminded of how deeply isolated we can feel when we are stuck in the trenches of overstimulation. If this deep dive into the 4 p.m. vibration hit home for you, if you recognized your own evenings in our conversation about bedtime, revenge, procrastination, sensory debt, or that feeling of your brain humming with static electricity, I want you to know 2 things before you log off today. First, you are not alone in this. And second, you have the power to change the script. But a script only works if we actually act it out. So today, I don't want you to just listen to this episode, nod your head and agree that a sensory off-ramp is a nice idea, and then walk straight into a hot kitchen and start performing again. I want us to make a pact. The Spoon Community Pact. And here is your official homework for the week. Take a quick screenshot of this episode on your phone right now while you're listening, post it to your Instagram or Facebook stories, or text it directly to a fellow teacher, content creator, homeschool parent, or professional who you know is running on pure adrenaline right alongside you. And when you send it, I want you to include one simple phrase. I'm taking my 10 minutes today. Are you? Let's use our platforms to build a culture where stepping away to protect our nervous system isn't seen as a luxury or a failure of dedication. Let's make it a standard. Let's give each other the loud, public permission to stop redlining. And when you tag me, I want to see where you're building your off-ramp. Whether it's a quiet car in a school parking lot, a dim corner of your bedroom, or just sitting on your porch steps looking at the trees. Let's share our fortresses of peace with each other. If you want the full written step-by-step layout of the 3-step off-ramp framework that we mapped out today, or if you need links to any resources that have been mentioned, I'm going to put them in the description below the Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Patreon, everywhere. I have laid it all out in the show notes so you don't have to think or take notes, because your brain has done enough processing for one day. And as we close out this episode, I want to leave you with one final thought to carry with you throughout the rest of your week. Sustainability is not about doing less of the work you love. It is about building a structure that allows you to love that work without it consuming the human being who performs it. You're an educator. Yes. You're a professional. Absolutely. You're a creator. Also true. You are a parent. You are a partner. You are a guide. But beneath all of those heavy, beautiful titles, you are a human being with a physical nervous system that requires care. Be kind to your body this week. Pay back the debt you owe your senses. Close those browser tabs. Give your eyes a rest from the glare. Step away from the digital jungle. And above all else, my friends, take care of your spoons. I'll talk to you next week.